The ship Aurora's Edge moved slowly through space toward the green and blue planet below. Dr. Kate Morrison pressed her face against the window of the science lab and watched the world grow larger. After 6 months of travel, they had finally reached Kepler 442b. This was her first time leading a mission to study alien life, and her hands shook with excitement. "Kate, you need to see this," called Jake Sullivan from the captain's chair on the bridge. His voice came through the ship's speakers. "The scans are showing life signs everywhere down there, big ones." Kate hurried to the bridge where Jake was, looking at the main screen. The readings showed creatures moving through the forests below. Some were as large as Earth's biggest dinosaurs. Lisa Park, the chief engineer, was standing next to Jake with a worried look on her face. "Are you sure about this mission?" Lisa asked. "Those things look dangerous." Kate nodded. "That's exactly why we need to study them. We've never seen alien predators before. This could change everything we know about life in the universe." Lieutenant Alex Rodriguez checked his weapons at the security station. "I'll have a full team ready when we go down there. Nothing's going to hurt our people." Jake turned to Kate. "What's the plan, Doctor?" "We follow first contact rules," Kate said. "We observe from a safe distance. We don't make direct contact unless they approach us first. And if they do approach, we let them make the first move." 2 hours later, Kate stood in the landing bay wearing her environmental suit. The air on the planet was safe to breathe, but the suit had cameras and sensors that would record everything. Jake, Alex, and 3 other crew members were with her. The shuttle's engines hummed as they prepared to land. "Remember," Kate said over the radio, "we're guests on their world. We move slowly. We don't make sudden movements, and we respect whatever we find down there." The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by tall trees that looked like purple bamboo. Kate stepped out first, her boots crunching on the orange grass. The air smelled like flowers and rain. Strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, calling to each other in musical voices. "It's beautiful," said Ryan Carter, the communications officer. He was recording everything with a handheld device. They walked through the forest for 20 minutes, following a path that seemed to be made by large animals. Kate took samples of plants and soil, storing them in sealed containers. Everything was going perfectly until Alex held up his hand. "Stop," he whispered. "Something's coming." Kate heard it too. Heavy footsteps in the distance, breaking branches as something big moved through the trees. The team gathered in a circle facing outward. Kate's heart began to beat faster. "How big?" Jake asked quietly. "Very big," Alex replied, raising his rifle. The footsteps stopped. The forest went silent. Even the bird creatures stopped singing. Kate could hear her own breathing inside her helmet. Then the trees in front of them began to move apart. What stepped into the clearing was unlike anything Kate had ever seen. The creature stood 12 feet tall on 4 legs that looked like they were made of living crystal. Its body was covered in scales that changed color from green to silver as it moved. But it was the head that made Kate gasp. The creature had the shape of a giant mantis, with huge compound eyes and mouth parts that could easily cut a person in half. "Nobody move," Kate whispered. The creature they would later call a Vorthak tilted its massive head and looked directly at Kate. Its compound eyes reflected the sunlight like mirrors. Kate expected it to attack. Every instinct told her to run. But something strange happened instead. The Vorthak took 1 step closer to Kate, then stopped. It lowered its head until it was only a few feet from her helmet. Kate could see her own reflection in its eyes, multiplied hundreds of times. The creature's mouth parts moved slightly, making a soft clicking sound. "Kate," Jake whispered. "Back, away slowly." But Kate couldn't move. She was staring into the Vorthak's eyes, and something impossible was happening. The creature wasn't looking at her like she was food. It wasn't looking at her like she was a threat. It was looking at her like it recognized her. The Vorthak's head tilted to the other side. The clicking sounds grew softer, almost gentle. Kate realized she was holding her breath. The creature's eyes seemed to be studying every detail of her, face through the helmet's clear front. "What's it doing?" Alex asked, his rifle still aimed at the creature. "I don't know," Kate whispered back. But it's not trying to hurt us. For almost a full minute, Kate and the Vorthak stared at each other. Kate felt like the creature was trying to tell her something, but she had no idea what. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the Vorthak stepped backward. It gave what almost looked like a small bow, then turned and disappeared back into the forest. The team stood in silence for several minutes after it was gone. What just happened? Ryan asked. Kate pulled off her helmet and looked at the place, where the Vorthak had vanished. I have no idea, but I don't think it saw us as enemies. That thing could have killed all of us in seconds, Alex said. Why didn't it? Lisa was already scanning the area with her equipment. Maybe it wasn't hungry? Kate shook her head. No, it was something else. The way it looked at me. She paused, trying to find the right words. It was like it knew me. Jake frowned. That's impossible. I know it's impossible, Kate said. But I know what I saw. That creature recognized something in me. I could see it in its eyes. They spent the rest of the day taking samples and recording data. But Kate couldn't stop thinking about the Vorthak. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see its compound eyes staring at her with what looked like understanding. That night, back on the ship, Kate sat in her lab studying the recordings. She played the moment of contact over and over, watching the creature's behavior. There was no doubt about it. The Vorthak had recognized something in her, something that made it choose not to attack. But what could an alien predator possibly recognize in a human being? 3 weeks later, the Aurora's Edge arrived at Tiamat Prime, a world covered almost entirely in deep blue oceans. Kate stood on the bridge next to Jake, watching the endless water below them through the main screen. Small islands dotted the surface like green jewels. The water's clean, Lisa reported from her station. No dangerous chemicals, but the life signs. She paused and looked at her readings again. There are massive creatures down there. Some are bigger than our ship. Kate felt excited and nervous at the same time. After what happened with the Vorthak, she wondered what they would find in these alien seas. We'll start with the shallow areas near the islands, she decided. Ryan Carter was already suiting up for the dive when Kate reached the equipment bay. I've been looking forward to this, he said with a grin. I used to dive in Earth's oceans all the time before joining the crew. Alex checked Ryan's diving gear twice. Remember, if you see anything big, you swim back to the shuttle immediately. No heroics. I'll be careful, Ryan promised. The team took the shuttle to a small island surrounded by clear water. Kate could see colorful fish swimming below the surface. They looked similar to earthfish but had extra fins and bright patterns on their scales. Ryan entered the water while the others watched from the shuttle's deck. Water's perfect. Ryan's voice came through the radio. I can see the bottom clearly. Lots of coral-like structures down here. Kate watched Ryan swim toward an underwater forest of red and gold plants. Everything seemed peaceful. Then Lisa's equipment started beeping rapidly. Ryan, get back here now, Lisa called into the radio. Something big is rising from the deep water. Through the clear water, Kate saw a shadow moving up from the darkness below. It was huge and getting bigger as it came closer to the surface. Ryan was swimming back toward the shuttle, but the shadow was moving faster than he could swim. Ryan, behind you, Jake shouted. Ryan turned in the water and froze. Rising from the depths was a creature that looked like a giant octopus crossed with a whale. Its body was dark blue with silver stripes, and it had dozens of thick tentacles that moved like snakes through the water. Each tentacle was as thick as a tree trunk. The creature's head was the size of a small house, with 2 enormous eyes that glowed like blue lanterns. That's a Leviathar, Kate whispered, remembering the name from their planetary survey data. They're the apex predators of this world. The Leviathar could have grabbed Ryan with any of its tentacles, but instead it did something unexpected. It slowed down and approached him carefully. Ryan floated in the water, too scared to move as the massive creature circled him slowly. Ryan, can you hear me? Kate called through the radio. I can hear you, Ryan replied, his voice shaking. It's looking at me. The Leviathar moved closer until its huge head was only a few feet from Ryan. Its glowing eyes studied Ryan's face through his diving mask. Kate could see everything clearly through the water. The creature's eyes were intelligent, almost human-like, despite their size and alien appearance. "What's it doing?" Alex asked, his hand on his weapon. "The same thing the Vorthak did," Kate said quietly. "It's trying to recognize something." For several long minutes, Ryan and the Leviathar stared at each other through the water. The creature's tentacles moved gently around Ryan but never touched him. Finally, the Leviathar did something that made everyone gasp. It placed one tentacle under Ryan and slowly pushed him toward the surface. "It's helping him," Lisa said in amazement. The Leviathar lifted Ryan until his head was above water, then gently released him near the shuttle. Ryan swam quickly to the ladder and climbed aboard, water dripping from his suit. "That was incredible," Ryan said, pulling off his diving mask. "It could have crushed me easily, but it was so gentle. And its eyes." He looked at Kate. "It was looking at me the same way you described the Vorthak looking at you." Kate helped Ryan out of his diving gear. "What did you feel when it was looking at you?" "Like it knew me," Ryan said. "Like it was remembering something about me, or about humans in general." The team spent 2 more days studying the Leviathars from a safe distance. They saw several more of the creatures, and each time, the giants showed the same gentle curiosity toward the humans. They never attacked, never threatened, only watched with those intelligent, glowing eyes. 2 months later, the Aurora's edge reached Xerion, a desert world with 3 suns. The surface was covered in red sand and strange rock formations that looked like twisted sculptures. Kate led a team across the desert, looking for the creatures their sensors had detected. "The heat's getting worse," complained Tony Mitchell, the ship's archaeologist, as he wiped sweat from his forehead. "We're almost there," Kate said, checking her scanner. "The life signs are just over that ridge." When they reached the top of the ridge, Kate saw a pack of 6 creatures resting in the shade of a large rock formation. They looked like a cross between wolves and lions, but with 6 legs instead of 4. Their fur was golden and seemed to sparkle in the sunlight. Each creature was about the size of a horse. "Sundrox," Kate said, reading from her datapad. The survey team classified them as pack hunters, highly intelligent, possibly psychic. One of the Sundrox raised its head and looked directly at Kate, even though they were still far away. Its eyes were golden and seemed to glow with inner light. Slowly, the creature stood up and began walking toward them. "Here we go again," Alex muttered, checking his weapon. The Sundrox approached alone, leaving its pack behind. As it got closer, Kate could see that its fur moved in patterns like waves across its body. The creature stopped about 10 feet away and sat down, tilting its head to study Kate. "It's beautiful," Kate whispered. The Sundrox's golden eyes locked onto Kate's eyes. She felt a strange tingling in her mind, like someone was gently touching her thoughts. The sensation wasn't frightening, just curious, like the creature was trying to understand what she was thinking. Then the Sundrox did something that shocked everyone. It stood up, walked slowly to Kate, and pressed its forehead against her gloved hand. Kate felt warmth through the glove, and for a moment, she thought she could sense the creature's emotions. It felt like recognition, like greeting an old friend. "This is the 3rd time," Kate said softly as the Sundrox returned to its pack. 3 different worlds, 3 different apex predators, and they all react the same way to us. "It can't be a coincidence," Jake said. Commander Beth Williams had been taking notes on every encounter. "I'm calling it the recognition," she said. "Whatever they're seeing in us, it means something important." That night, Kate sat in her quarters, staring at the recordings from all 3 worlds. The Vorthak with its compound eyes, the Leviathar with its glowing blue eyes, the Sundrox with its golden eyes. All of them had looked at humans with the same expression of recognition and understanding. But what could creatures from completely different worlds possibly recognize in human beings? And why did Kate feel like she was starting to remember something she had never learned? The 4th world they visited was called Sanctuary, and it was different from all the others. Instead of wild forests or endless oceans or burning deserts, Sanctuary had ruins. Ancient stone buildings covered in strange symbols stretched across the landscape like a dead city. "How old do you think these are?" Kate asked as their shuttle flew over the ruins. Tony Mitchell pressed his face against the window, his eyes wide with excitement. "Based on the weathering patterns, I'd say millions of years old, maybe more." "But the planet survey said there was no intelligent life here," Jake said from the pilot's seat. "There isn't now," Tony replied. "But there was once, and whoever built this place, they were advanced." The shuttle landed in what looked like the center of the ancient city. Tall towers made of black stone rose around them, covered in symbols that seemed to move and change when Kate wasn't looking directly at them. "Stay together," Alex warned as they stepped out of the shuttle. "We don't know what's still working in this place." Kate followed Tony as he walked toward the largest building. It looked like a temple or palace with massive doors that stood open as if waiting for visitors. The symbols on the walls were carved deep into the stone and filled with a material that glowed softly in the dim light. "Look at this," Tony called, from just inside the entrance. "The walls are covered in pictures." Kate hurried to where Tony was standing and gasped. The walls were covered in murals, pictures carved into the stone and painted with colors that still looked fresh after millions of years. But it wasn't just the art that amazed her, it was what the art showed. "Those are Vorthax," Kate said, pointing to one section of the wall. The mural showed the crystal mantis creatures, but they looked different somehow, more peaceful, less wild. "And there," Ryan pointed to another section. "Those look like Leviathars." Kate walked along the wall, studying each mural. She saw Sundrolks running across painted deserts, their fur glowing golden in the artwork. She saw creatures from worlds they hadn't visited yet, all painted with incredible detail. "It's like a catalog of apex predators from across the galaxy," Tony said in amazement. But it was the center of the largest mural that made Kate's heart stop. In the middle of all the alien creatures was a figure that looked unmistakably human. The figure was taller than a normal human and wore clothes made of light. But the face, the body shape, the eyes, they were clearly human. "That's impossible," Jake said, staring at the human figure in the ancient art. "Wait," Tony said, examining the symbols around the human figure. "I think I can translate some of this. These symbols, they're mathematical, universal concepts." He pulled out his translation device and pointed it at the wall. After several minutes, the device began to produce words. "The last ones," Tony read slowly. "The survivors of the great ending, the ones who carried life to empty worlds." Kate felt a chill run down her spine. "Keep translating." Tony moved to another section of the wall. "They who escaped the dying of their home, they who seeded new worlds with new life, they who gave their essence to ensure survival." "Their essence?" Kate asked. Tony pointed to a smaller mural that showed the human-like figures working alongside the alien creatures. "Look at this. It shows them not fighting the predators but working with them, teaching them. And here," he moved to the final section, "it shows them changing, becoming part of the worlds they created." Lisa had been scanning the walls with her equipment. "Kate, you need to see this. The walls aren't just painted. They're some kind of advanced technology. They're storing information, massive amounts of it. Can you access it?" Kate asked. "I think so." Lisa connected her scanner to one of the glowing symbols. Immediately, the entire room filled with light, and images began appearing in the air around them. The holographic images showed the story the murals had only hinted at. Kate watched as a great catastrophe destroyed galaxy after galaxy. She saw worlds burning, stars dying, and entire civilizations vanishing in moments. But she also saw survivors, a race that looked like tall, advanced humans, escaping in great ships. "The architects," a voice said, though Kate couldn't tell where it came from. The voice spoke in perfect English, as if the ancient technology was translating for them. The images continued, showing the architects traveling to empty worlds and beginning the long work of creating new life. But they weren't just planting plants and releasing animals. They were giving part of themselves to every creature they created. We were the apex predators of our galaxy, the voice continued. The final survivors when all others had fallen. We carried within us the memory of survival, the instinct that refuses to surrender when all hope is lost. Kate watched as the architects worked on world after world, creating the Vorthax, the Leviathars, the Sundrox, and hundreds of other apex predators. But with each world, the architects became fewer, weaker, giving more of themselves to their creations. We saved our greatest work for last, the voice said. A small blue world with perfect conditions for life. There we planted not just our knowledge, but ourselves. The final images showed the last of the architects arriving at a world Kate recognized immediately. Earth. She watched as they guided the evolution of early humans, not from the outside, but from within, becoming part of human DNA itself. You are not just our children, the voice said. You are us, continued. In every human lives the essence of the galaxy's greatest survivors. The images faded, leaving the team standing in stunned silence. That's why they recognize us, Kate whispered. The apex predators on every world carry genetic memory of the architects. When they look at humans, they're seeing their creators. But more than that, Tony added, still staring at the now dark walls. They're seeing themselves. The same survivor instinct, the same refusal to give up. Jake shook his head slowly. So humans are descendants of an ancient race of survivors? Not descendants, Kate corrected. We are them. The architects didn't just influence human evolution, they became human evolution. Ryan was looking at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. That's why every apex predator we've met treats us with respect instead of aggression. They recognize the survivor in us. The same survivor that's in them, Kate added. Alex had been quiet during the entire revelation, but now he spoke up. If this is true, what does it mean for us? For humanity? Kate looked around at the ancient ruins, thinking about all the apex predators they had encountered. Each one had looked at them with recognition, with understanding, with something that might have been hope. It means we're not just explorers, she said finally. We're inheritors. And maybe it's time we started acting like it. The voice spoke one more time, so quietly Kate almost missed it. The children of survivors have work to do. The galaxy still needs apex predators, and apex predators need each other. As they walked back to their shuttle, Kate couldn't stop thinking about what they had learned. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe. They were connected to every apex predator on every world, all children of the same ancient survivors. But that connection came with responsibility, and Kate was beginning to understand what that responsibility might be. 2 weeks after discovering the truth about the architects, the Aurora's Edge received an emergency signal from the fifth world on their mission. The planet was called Terminus, and the message was simple but desperate. Help us. Everything is dying. Kate stood on the bridge next to Jake as they approached Terminus. Through the main screen, she could see that something was terribly wrong with the planet. Instead of the green and blue colors of a healthy world, Terminus looked sick. Brown and gray patches covered the land like wounds. The atmospheric readings are bad, Lisa reported from her station. Whatever's happening down there, it's spreading fast. Life signs? Kate asked. Lisa checked her scanners. Much fewer than there should be. Most of the smaller creatures are gone, only the biggest predators are still alive, and even they're in trouble. Jake turned to Kate. What do you think we're dealing with? Some kind of plague, Kate said. Something that kills most life forms but leaves the apex predators alive a little longer. Danny Brooks, the security chief, was already preparing his team. If there's a plague down there, we need to be extra careful. Full protective suits, limited contact with anything on the surface. Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's medic, joined them on the bridge. I've been studying the data from our sensors. This isn't a normal disease, it's something that attacks the genetic structure of life itself. The only reason the apex predators are still alive is because they're stronger. But even They won't last much longer. Kate felt a cold fear in her stomach. If the apex predators of this world died, another link in the chain of architect survivors would be lost forever. We have to try to help them. It might be too dangerous, Jake warned. We're descendants of the greatest survivors in the galaxy, Kate said firmly. If we can't help fellow survivors, what's the point of everything we learned? The shuttle landed on Terminus in what had once been a forest. Now it was a wasteland of dead trees and empty ground. The air was thick with gray dust that their sensors said was the remains of dead plants and animals. Kate, Danny, Amy, and 2 other crew members walked carefully through the dead landscape. Their environmental suits protected them from the plague, but Kate could see through her helmet that nothing was growing here anymore. Over there, Danny pointed to a group of shapes moving slowly in the distance. As they got closer, Kate could see the survivors. They were called apex remnants in the planetary survey data, creatures that looked like a cross between wolves and dragons. They had thick fur that changed color with their emotions, powerful legs for running, and intelligent eyes that glowed softly in the dim light. But these remnants looked nothing like the proud predators they were supposed to be. Their fur was dull and patchy. Their movements were slow and painful. Worst of all, Kate could see madness in their glowing eyes. The loss of their world, the death of everything they had known, had driven them to the edge of sanity. They're dying, Amy said softly through the radio. Not just from the plague, but from grief. There were 12 remnants in the group, probably the last survivors on the entire planet. When they saw the humans approaching, they reacted with fear and anger. Several of them growled and showed their teeth, which were as long as knives. Easy, Kate said, though she knew they couldn't understand her words. We're here to help. The largest remnant, probably the pack leader, stepped forward. It was massive, easily twice the size of the others, with fur that flickered between black and deep red. Its eyes burned with pain and rage, but also with a terrible intelligence. Kate could see that this creature had been magnificent once. Even now, sick and grieving, it moved with the grace of a true apex predator. But it was also clearly ready to fight, even against opponents in protective suits who might carry weapons. Jake, are you getting this? Kate said into her radio. We see everything, Jake's voice replied from orbit. Be careful down there. The pack leader approached Kate slowly, its glowing eyes never leaving her face. Behind it, the other remnants watched nervously. Kate could feel their desperation, their pain, their anger at losing everything they had ever known. Then something remarkable happened. As the pack leader got closer to Kate, its expression began to change. The anger faded from its eyes, replaced by something Kate had seen before on other worlds. Recognition. It's happening again, Danny whispered. The pack leader stopped just a few feet from Kate and tilted its massive head. Its glowing eyes studied her face through the clear front of her helmet. For a long moment, neither human nor alien moved. Then the pack leader did something that shocked everyone. It lay down on the ground in front of Kate, lowering its head, in what could only be described as a bow of respect. It recognizes you, Amy said in amazement. But Kate could see something more in the creature's eyes. It wasn't just recognition, it was understanding. The pack leader looked at Kate and saw someone who knew what it felt like to lose everything. Someone who understood the burden of being the last of your kind. You know, don't you? Kate said softly, even though the creature couldn't understand her words. You know what it's like to be the only ones left. The pack leader raised its head and looked directly into Kate's eyes. In that moment, Kate felt a connection that went beyond words or species. She was looking at a fellow survivor, someone who carried the same ancient instinct to keep going even when everything else was lost. Slowly, Kate reached out her gloved hand. The pack leader sniffed it carefully, then gently pressed its massive head against her palm. The other remnants watched in silence, their own eyes beginning to show hope instead of despair. They're not just recognizing us as fellow apex predators, Kate realized. They're recognizing us as the only ones who might be able to help them survive this. Amy was already taking readings with her medical scanner. Kate, I think I might be able to develop a treatment for the plague, but it will take time, and we'll need to keep these creatures alive long enough to test it. Can we take them with us? Danny asked. Not all of them, Kate said, looking at the group of dying creatures. But maybe we can save some. Maybe we can give them a chance to start over. The pack leader seemed to understand what Kate was thinking. It stood up and walked back to its pack, making soft sounds that might have been communication. The other remnants listened carefully, then one by one, they approached the humans. Each creature looked at Kate with the same expression of recognition and hope. They were placing their trust in these strange beings who smelled like survival, who carried in their eyes the same look that marked all apex predators who refused to give up. As the team prepared to transport 3 of the healthiest remnants back to the ship, Kate felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. These creatures were trusting humans not just to save their lives, but to preserve their species. Jake, Kate said into her radio, we're bringing passengers back with us, and I think it's time we started planning something bigger. What do you mean? Jake asked. Kate looked at the dying world around her, then at the remnants who were preparing to leave the only home they had ever known. I mean, it's time we started acting like the descendants of the architects. It's time we started gathering survivors. The pack leader looked at Kate one more time before entering the shuttle. In its eyes, she saw not just recognition, but hope. The hope that somewhere in the galaxy there might be others like them. Others who understood that being the last didn't mean being alone. As the shuttle lifted off from the dead world, Kate made a promise to herself and to the creatures they were saving. This wouldn't be the end of their story. It would be the beginning of something new. 6 months later, Kate stood in the observation deck of the Aurora's Edge as they approached Earth. Behind her in the ship's specially built habitat sections, creatures from 5 different worlds were living together for the first time in millions of years. The Vorthax clicked softly to each other, their crystal bodies reflecting the ship's lights. The young Leviathar they had rescued floated in a massive water tank, its tentacles moving in slow, peaceful patterns. The Sundrox had formed a small pack and spent their time playing games that looked almost human. The 3 apex remnants were growing stronger every day as Amy's treatment slowly cured the plague in their systems. Kate, you need to see this, Amy called from her medical station. I've been studying the DNA of all our passengers and I found something incredible. Kate hurried to Amy's lab, where genetic charts covered every wall. What did you find? Look at this. Amy pointed to a complex diagram on her main screen. Every apex predator we rescued has the same genetic markers. Not similar markers, the exact same ones. What does that mean? It means they're all related, Amy said excitedly. Not just in the sense that they're all apex predators. They're literally family. The architects didn't just give them similar traits, they gave them the same base genetic code. Kate stared at the charts, understanding flooding through her. So when they look at each other, they see brothers and sisters, Amy finished. And when they look at us, they see their creators and their children at the same time. Jake's voice came over the ship's speakers. Kate, please report to the bridge. Earth Control wants to speak with you. Kate made her way to the bridge, where Jake was talking to officials on Earth. The main screen showed Director Helen Price, the head of Earth's space exploration program. She looked concerned. Dr. Morrison, Director Price said, we've received your reports about these alien creatures you're bringing to Earth. Some people are worried about the dangers. Director, these creatures aren't dangerous to us, Kate replied. They're our relatives in a way that's hard to explain. That's exactly what we need to discuss, Director Price said. Your reports about this recognition and the ancient architects, some of our scientists think you might be right. We've been studying human DNA more carefully and we've found genetic sequences that don't match anything else on Earth. Kate felt her heart beat faster. You found architect DNA in humans? We found something, Director Price said carefully. And if you're right about humanity's connection to these apex predators, then your mission just became much more important than we originally planned. The Aurora's Edge landed at Earth's primary spaceport 3 days later. Kate watched through the windows as crowds of people gathered to see the alien creatures they had brought home. Scientists, reporters, and curious citizens all wanted to know about humanity's new relatives. Pete Collins, the ship's chief engineer, had spent the journey designing portable habitat systems for each species. The Vorthax need crystal gardens, he explained to the Earth scientists who met them. The Leviathars need deep, clean water. The Sundrogs need open spaces where they can run. Dr. Sandy Walsh, a preservation specialist who had joined the mission, was already planning the new facility. We'll build it in the mountains of Colorado, she said. Plenty of space, clean air, and far enough from cities to give our guests privacy while they adjust to Earth. But it was the moment when the apex predators first saw Earth that truly amazed Kate. As each creature was carefully transported from the ship, they all had the same reaction. They looked around at the blue sky, the green plants, the clean air, and their eyes filled with something that looked like coming home. The pack leader of the apex remnants, who Kate had started calling Noble because of his dignified behavior, stood at the edge of his temporary enclosure and stared at the mountains in the distance. His fur shifted from the dull gray of grief to a warm brown color that Kate had never seen before. "He's healing," Amy said, standing next to Kate. "Not just from the plague, but from the loss of his world. Being here, being with others like him, it's helping him remember what hope feels like." Over the next few weeks, something wonderful happened. The different apex predators began to interact with each other. The Vorthax would click their approval when the Sundrogs played. The young Leviathar would change the color of its tentacles to match the mood of whichever creature was visiting its tank. Noble and the other remnants learned to hunt together with the Sundrogs, even though they had never seen each other's species before. "It's like they're remembering," Tony said as he watched a Vorthak and a Sundrog share their food. "Like they know they're supposed to be family." Kate was in her new office at the Earth facility when Jake brought her the message that would change everything. "Kate, we just received this from deep space," he said, handing her a datapad. The message was simple but clear. "We are the Thornbacks of Kepler 186f. Our world is dying. We have heard that the children of the architects walk among the stars again. Please help us." Kate looked up at Jake with wide eyes. "They know about us." "It gets better," Jake said with a grin. "We've received similar messages from 12 other star systems. Word is spreading that humanity is gathering apex predators again." Kate walked outside to the main habitat, where all their rescued creatures were spending time together in the afternoon sun. Noble saw her coming and approached, the fence pressing his massive head against her hand in greeting. The young Leviathar lifted itself partially out of its pool to see her. The Vorthax clicked their welcome and the Sundrogs bounded over like excited puppies. "What do you think?" Kate asked them, even though they couldn't understand her words. "Ready to help us save more of your relatives?" Noble's eyes seemed to understand exactly what she was asking. He looked around at all the other apex predators, then back at Kate, and made a sound that she had learned meant agreement. Director Price found Kate an hour later, sitting on a bench and watching the creatures play together in their shared spaces. "The government has approved your proposal," she said. "Humanity is officially establishing the Apex Preservation Initiative. You'll have a fleet of ships, unlimited resources, and the authority to rescue any apex predator species that needs help." Kate smiled as she watched a Vorthak carefully playing a chasing game with 2 Sundrogs. "The architects would be proud," she said softly. "Do you really think they're still out there somewhere?" Director Price asked. Kate looked up at the sky, where new stars were becoming visible as the sun set. "I think they're everywhere," she said, "in every human who refuses to give up, in every apex predator who survives against impossible odds, in every act of preservation and protection we do." A few months later, Kate stood on the bridge of humanity's newest ship, the Sanctuary, as they approached their first rescue mission, to Kepler 186f. Behind her, Noble and several other apex predators from Earth were traveling as ambassadors, ready to help their new relatives understand that they were no longer alone. "Signal from the planet," Ryan reported from the communication station. "The Thornbacks are waiting for us." Kate watched the alien world grow larger on the main screen. Somewhere down there, another group of apex predators was about to learn that the galaxy's greatest survivors had never really died. They had just been waiting for the right time to come home. "Take us down," Kate ordered. "We have family to collect." As the sanctuary descended toward the planet's surface, Kate thought about the ancient architects and the incredible gift they had given the galaxy. They had made sure that no apex predator would ever have to face extinction alone. They had created a family that spanned the stars, connected by the simple recognition that survivors recognize other survivors. And now, finally, that family was coming together again.